Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are attempting something pretty ambitious, a really sweeping high-altitude view of the entire history of Homo sapiens.
And we're not getting bogged down in the details of, who invented a sharper spear point.
Exactly. Our focus is more on the invisible architecture of it all. We're asking, what truly sets us apart? I mean, really, from every other creature on the planet.
So our mission in this deep dive is to explore a concept that's, well, it's almost unbelievable at first.
The idea that all of human society, and I mean all of it, from the first Stone Age trade networks to the global economy today, is built on what the sources call imagined orders.
Shared stories, a kind of mythical glue.
That's the term, the mythical glue.
Okay, but before we get to the myths, it's so important to ground ourselves in biology first.
Right.
You see, we tend to think of ourselves as totally unique, but the sources remind us of what used to be a really guarded secret. We belong, without a doubt, to the great apes family.
Our closest living relatives are chimpanzees.
Chimpanzees, yes. We shared a common female ancestor with them just 6 million years ago. In evolutionary terms, that's like, yesterday.
So we share this deep biological foundation. A lot of our physical, our emotional, even our cognitive building blocks are the same.
They are.
Which brings us to this massive puzzle. If we're so similar, why can you get, say, 50,000 strangers to sit peacefully in a stadium and follow really complex rules?
But if you tried to put even 5,000 chimpanzees into that same stadium?
It would be instant, total chaos, carnage.
And that difference, it becomes just astounding, biologically inexplicable once you get past a certain group size. About 150 individuals.
Dunbar's number.
That's the one. It's sort of the maximum size for a group where everyone can know everyone else, personally.
Yep.
Where you can rely on instinctual, intimate trust.
Below 150, we look a lot like chimps.
But beyond 150, our ability to cooperate flexibly in these massive numbers, it just takes off. And that's how we build empires, global trade, corporations, things no other animal can do.
And this capacity, this is the key point. It isn't instinct. It's not in our DNA.
It's driven entirely by these shared fictions.
Which brings us perfectly to part one, the fictional foundation of mass cooperation. Let's start with something that seems really practical. Trade.
Goods for goods. Seems simple.
So why do the sources argue that even this pragmatic activity, is unique to sapiens and requires a profound element of fiction?
Because trade, especially long-distance trade, it requires trust. Trust between complete strangers.
You have to believe that the person you're trading with, or maybe someone 3 steps down the supply chain who you'll never meet, will actually honor the deal. Now look at the archaeology. When you dig up Neanderthal sites, you find tools made from local materials.
Right, from just around their camp, stuff that was at hand.
Exactly, maybe from a 30-kilometer radius at most. But then you look at sapien sites from the same period. In the middle of Europe, say, 30,000 years ago, we find seashells.
And not local ones.
Not at all. Shells from the Mediterranean or the Atlantic coast, hundreds and hundreds of miles away. Wow. Or the example from the South Pacific on New Ireland.
Yeah, sapiens there were using tools made from obsidian, a volcanic glass. But the only source for that obsidian was traced back to New Britain, 400 kilometers away.
Across the open ocean.
Requiring incredibly complex navigation and, more importantly, these multi-generational trust networks.
So the real innovation wasn't the tool itself. It was the trust. The story you had to tell yourself to move it reliably over these huge distances.
That's the mythical glue starting to form. But to hold together a whole empire or a modern country, you need much bigger, more complex fictions.
These imagined orders, as the sources call them.
And we have 2 incredible examples here. 2 cooperation manuals separated by 4,000 years. The Code of Hammurabi from Babylon.
Around 1776 BC.
And the American Declaration of Independence, 1776 AD.
Okay, so let's start with Hammurabi's code. What was its foundational myth?
It was a cooperation manual for millions of Babylonians, and it was built on a myth of rigid, unshakable hierarchy. You had superiors, commoners, and slaves.
And the laws made this fiction a reality.
They absolutely did. So, for example, if a superior man blinded the eye of another superior man, the law was reciprocal. They shall blind his eye, an eye for an eye.
But the striking part is what happens when the victim's fictional status changes.
It's shocking, really. If that same superior man blinded the eye of a commoner, he didn't lose his own eye.
What was the penalty?
The law said he shall weigh and deliver 60 shekels of silver. The human eye doesn't have a universal value. Its value is based on a social fiction. One man's eye is priceless, the other's is worth 60 shekels of silver.
Now contrast that with the Declaration of Independence. It proclaims the exact opposite fictional order.
All men are created equal.
The universal dilemma that the source material points out is that both of these documents, Hammurabi's Code and the Declaration, they both claim to be outlining these eternal, objective principles of justice.
Hierarchy versus equality.
But the argument is that both are wrong, because these principles only exist in the, quote, fertile imagination of sapiens.
That's a challenging idea for us, especially when we think about equality. I mean, if it's just a fiction, what about real moral progress, like abolishing slavery?
How does the source material account for that?
It makes a very sharp distinction between biology and culture. Just look at the Declaration itself. While it's proclaiming equality, the American imagined order at the time was building massive hierarchies.
Men over women.
White landowners over blacks and American Indians. I mean, many of the people who signed it were slaveholders.
So they didn't see Negroes, as they would have said, as having those same equal rights.
Within their fictional framework, no. They weren't necessarily being hypocrites. They were just operating under a different set of rules where one fiction landowner liberty was way more important than another one, universal biological equality.
This cultural versus biological idea is so crucial.
It is. Think about the word woman. A female is a biological category, defined by DNA. That's the same in ancient Athens as it is in modern Athens.
But a woman is a cultural category.
Totally different. In ancient Athens, a woman was usually illiterate, legally owned by her husband. In modern Athens, she votes, she studies, she's legally independent. The biology hasn't changed at all, but the cultural fiction, the hierarchy, has shifted dramatically.
Which proves it's a construct, not some objective biological fact.
Exactly.
Okay, so this mythical glue holds society together, but it often enables profound injustice along the way. We've seen how trade requires local trust. But how do you scale that trust up to a global level across empires and warring cultures?
And that brings us to part 2, money, the ultimate unifier.
Money is described as the third great universal order, right after empires and religion.
And its power is in its radical tolerance. It is, by far, the most successful trust system ever invented by humans.
The story about the Spanish conquistador, Hernán Cortés, in Mexico, that really drives home just how strange money seems to an outsider.
It's a fantastic example. The Aztecs couldn't understand why the Spaniards were so obsessed with gold. I mean, it's a soft metal, it's useless for tools, you can't eat it.
So when they asked Cortés why they wanted it so badly,
he gave that incredible answer. He said he and his companions suffered from a disease of the heart, which can be cured only with gold.
The gold itself was worthless. The fiction was what mattered. The belief that other people believed in its value.
That's it. Money only asks one thing of you, to trust that other people, even your worst enemies, will accept this arbitrary object for a real, tangible good.
And the power of that shared belief is just staggering. We have historical proof of Christians and Muslims waging these bloody existential wars against each other.
For the glory of their gods.
And at the same time, they were happily doing business using each other's coins.
That's the radical tolerance right there. In the 12th century, Christian kingdoms actually minted a coin called the millerist. It was a direct copy of a popular Muslim dinar.
And they even put Arabic script on it.
They did. Flowing Arabic script that declared, "There is no God except Allah, and Muhammad is Allah's messenger." And pious Christians use them every day. On the flip side, Muslim merchants happily used Christian florins.
It even bridges modern divides.
Yeah.
I mean, Osama bin Laden, for all his hatred of the U.S., apparently had a preference for American dollars.
Money goes where gods and kings have failed for millennia. And its utility is that it's a universal medium of exchange. It converts almost anything into anything else.
Land into loyalty.
A farmer can sell his property for a few compact cowrie shells instead of having to haul tons of rice around.
Or, infamously, it could convert sex into salvation.
Right. In the 15th century, prostitutes could buy indulgences from the Catholic Church with their earnings. Money solves the logistics of wealth, and it makes everything convertible.
But the sources issue a pretty strong warning here. Money builds this universal trust between strangers. But it does something else. It erodes intimate local trust.
That's the price you pay. That's the dark side of this particular mythical glue. You see, local communities are built on things we call priceless.
Honor, loyalty, love.
Exactly. And money, because it's a universal converter, it just breaks down those local dams of community. It replaces traditions and human values with the cold laws of supply and demand.
So when everything can be converted into a number, our trust shifts from the person in front of us.
To the impersonal coin, to the system itself.
This tension, the utility of a fiction versus its corrosive side effects, that seems to be a constant theme. And leads us right into part 3, progress, capital, and the future of Sapiens.
We seem to be endlessly vulnerable to what the sources call the luxury trap.
Which is what exactly?
Yeah, it's this iron law of history that luxuries tend to become necessities, and then they create new obligations we never had before.
Let's use a modern example, email.
Perfect. We invented these amazing time-saving devices, right? Email, instant messaging. We thought we were going to free up our time, relax.
Before digital communication, sending a business letter took real effort. It took time.
And the person who received it knew they had weeks to craft a thoughtful reply. You might get a few important letters a month.
And now?
Now we spend that saved time instantly replying to dozens of emails a day, all of which seem to demand an immediate response. We thought we were gaining convenience.
But instead, we just revved up the treadmill of life to 10 times its former speed. The luxury became a necessity. The time saver became a new source of anxiety.
And that same logic, that ever-increasing effort, it underpins our entire modern economy, maybe the most powerful fiction of them all.
Capitalism.
Before the modern era, economies were mostly seen as a zero-sum game. The pie was fixed. For me to get rich, I had to take a slice from you.
But the modern economy, capitalism, is built on a totally radical idea, a psychological leap.
Trust in the future. It's based on this core belief that the global pie isn't fixed at all. It's always growing. We take on massive debt, we use credit because we have this shared faith that future growth will more than pay for it.
And the philosophical justification for this fiction, this trust in growth, was really laid out by Adam Smith in 1776.
The Wealth of Nations. It was a moral revolution pretending to be an economic one. Smith argued that the selfish pursuit of private profit is actually the basis for collective wealth.
Greed is good.
Essentially, yes. For centuries, religion had condemned greed as a sin. Smith comes along and says, no, by maximizing my own profit, I'm not stealing from society. I'm actually making the whole pie bigger for everyone. A win-win.
It, as the source puts it, threw open the gates of heaven for the rich.
And that faith in economic growth was supercharged by a new, radical faith in science.
Before the scientific revolution, most cultures looked backward. The golden age was always in the past.
Right, and innovation was seen as dangerous. Modern science flipped that completely. It started with the admission of ignoramus, we do not know. And that admission of ignorance, when you couple it with the ideal of future progress, it created exponential power.
Because the test of knowledge became utility. Not truth, but utility.
Knowledge is power, and you can see the difference in speed. Look at gunpowder. The Chinese discovered it, but it took about 600 years of slow evolution before cannons became a truly decisive weapon.
Now contrast that with modern physics.
It was just 40 years between Einstein figuring out that EMCP heat.
That mass can be converted into energy.
And the dropping of atomic bombs on Japan.
And that acceleration wasn't just because we had smarter people. It was about the organizational fiction of progress, wasn't it?
Absolutely. The belief in progress, that shared story, created government funding, institutional science. It accelerated utility at this terrifying, unprecedented speed.
And now, that utility-driven progress is leading us to a point where we aren't just fixing the world. We are fundamentally re-engineering sapiens.
We've gone way beyond pacemakers and eyeglasses. We're in the blurred zone of chimeras and cyborgs.
The example of the mouse with a human-shaped ear grown on its back.
From cattle cartilage cells, no less. It shows we can bioengineer complex structures. And when we talk cyborgs, the line between biological and bionic is basically gone. You have real people like Jesse Sullivan, the electrician, who uses thought-controlled bionic arms.
And DARPA's trying to develop cyborg insects and sharks.
Implanting processors to control their movements remotely. It's happening.
So what's the profound social threat here? Historically, the difference between an elite and a commoner was based on a fictional story.
Right.
But this new power threatens to make those inequalities real, objective, biological.
And that is the potential social catastrophe. The old claims of the elite that they were just naturally smarter, stronger, somehow divinely superior, that was an illusion. A peasant baby was biologically the same as a crown prince.
But if medicine shifts from healing the sick to enhancing the capabilities of the rich,
Then the pretensions of the upper class could become an objective biological reality. They could literally become a different subspecies.
creating the most unequal society in history, not based on social class, but on biological speciation.
And these enhancements, all driven by our faith in progress, are pushing us toward what some call the singularity, a point where our current concepts just break down.
So a future race of enhanced beings so different from us.
More different from us than we are from Neanderthals. And at that point, our fictions, our ideas of love, hate, men, women, even human rights, they might become totally irrelevant to whoever inherits the world.
So to wrap this all up, we've traced human success, our conquest of the planet, to this unique ability to invent and believe in vast shared myths.
Whether it's the hierarchy of Hammurabi, the equality of the Declaration, the stability of money, or our faith in progress.
And yet, the very systems we build with this mythical glue, while they're necessary for our cooperation, are always filled with contradictions. They often create injustice and these completely unintended side effects.
Like the treadmill of modern convenience.
And the final irony here is, it's pretty unsettling. The sources note that, like the ancient Egyptians building their pyramids, most of us today dedicate our lives to building our own metaphorical pyramids.
It could be a suburban house, a penthouse apartment, financial security.
And our efforts are fueled by our modern faiths, capitalism and science.
So here's the final thought to leave you with. Ask yourself this. What if all the wealth, the stability, the technologies we're striving for, the very pillars of our belief in progress, what if they are leading us directly to a future, to the singularity, where the liberal humanism we value so much just ceases to be meaningful?
If you're pursuing eternal youth or advanced biological enhancement, are you, maybe unwittingly, contributing to the end of Homo sapiens as we know them, ushering in a post-human era that makes our entire history irrelevant?
A profound thought.
It is. Take a look around your world today and try to see the mythical glue that's holding it all together, and ask yourself where that glue is really taking us.